Good afternoon and welcome to Energy Talks. Welcome to all our viewers. Energy Talks is a series of episodes and interviews in a dialogue format that will run up to the beginning of December, when the Green Hydrogen Summit Oman will start. And today I'm delighted to welcome a prominent management consulting company in the Middle East, and in particular delighted to welcome Mr. Javier Doblas, who is a managing director and partner of BCG in Dubai. And Javier, welcome to
Thank you.
the
Thanks
episode.
for the invitation.
You're welcome. I'd like we start our discussion today a little bit on a quick presentation of yourself, how long you've been in the Middle East and what you've been focused on. And then I will ask you to give us also an overview of the deliverables, the experience of BCG in the GCC area as well.
Very good. So yes, thanks for the invitation. So I've been in the region now for almost 10 years. As most of the expats initially came for a couple of years, but here I am 10 years later. And what I focus on is what I like to call, I support clients somehow related to the energy industry. So it can be the national oil companies, the local utilities, the renewable developers, the sovereign wealth funds, so whoever has some sort of stake in the energy industry in navigating the fundamental shift due to the energy transition. So how do we potentially invest in new businesses? How do we decarbonize our core to make sure that we protect our core hydrocarbon resource? What does it mean in terms of operating models? So this is what BCG and myself in particular have been advising clients on for the past few years.
And I think BCG have been, is a big name, and it's also a name that resonates in Oman as well, with experience of a project you've been working on. So at any time during our dialogue, don't hesitate to jump in concrete examples of project or things you've done, so long that you can share it with the viewers. So thank you very much for that. And welcome to the expat community. I know the feeling of coming for a few months or years and spending a life in such an exciting region. I'd like we start a little bit with a logical first step of looking into the landscape, the green hydrogen landscape and the derivatives. There's a lot of momentum in the world, but there is even more momentum from my perspective in the Middle East and North Africa region. And to do that, to start that part of our discussion, I'd like we explore what are the key enablers that are specific to the region, and maybe if you can make comments on a few of those countries leading the charge right now, such as Oman, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, UAE, and so on.
So the green hydrogen or clean hydrogen in general, we know it's a key decarbonization lever. So if we want to reach net zero, we will need to use those clean fuels, because renewable electricity alone will not be sufficient. So that's a fact. And the countries in the region have realized that they have a tremendous potential with clean hydrogen and green hydrogen in particular, because they have the renewable resources, so solar and wind. Specifically, Oman has wind. The land available, they are geographically located in very strategic regions, so somehow halfway between Europe and Asia, which would be the main demand centers, and they have existing infrastructure, the existing hydrocarbon infrastructure that can be leveraged. And on top of that, they already have the experience, the capabilities of handling fuels with the hydrocarbon exports of today. So that's a unique combination. And as a matter of fact, then the governments have understood that there is something to be done, and they have launched very ambitious green or clean hydrogen strategies. So if you look at Oman, Saudi Arabia, UAE, are all pushing forward, because they see it as a big economic opportunity to help them diversify their economies away from oil and gas. So for instance, Saudi Arabia has pledged to become the #1 exporter of clean hydrogen. Oman has also a very ambitious strategy to produce 1 million tons by 2030, ramping up to 8 million tons by 2050. UAE also very similar targets. So these are very, very large numbers, which is testament to the opportunity that they have identified.
Very good. And maybe if I could also get your thoughts a little bit about the geographic location of Oman in particular. We are basically, there is direct access to many different seas in the world, almost to the 7 seas, as we say. I'd like to get a little bit your thought about, putting Oman as a center of gravity kind of perspective.
Yes. So indeed, Oman has this unique advantage that it is open to the Indian Ocean, so the potential exports to Asia are simplified. And for me, the main advantage of Oman is actually the southern coast, where you have the very good wind resources, which is quite unique to the Middle East. Because yes, we know solar irradiation is very high in the Middle East, Oman also extremely high, but this unique combination of high solar radiation and good wind speeds is quite unique to Oman. Only parts of the northwest coast of Saudi Arabia have something similar, so in the Neom region. But the rest, no. And that's the key strategic advantage of Oman.
Okay, excellent. And that definitely, we also see that a little bit into the geostrategic positioning of Oman. They are talking to Asia, they're talking to Europe, and those
Correct.
are both potential markets.
Yes.
And of course, they are competing nations with all these sort of destinations, but definitely Oman is well positioned for that. So. An additional point that we now discuss in pretty much all the events related to green hydrogen and green derivatives is the so-called off-takers. I mean, this is forefront and central into any discussion, whether we discuss at government levels or in the private sector, and in particular with the green hydrogen project developers. So I'd like to get your thoughts maybe on stepping back a little bit, and maybe if you could share your thoughts on the criticality of those off-take contracts globally at the moment, and taking into consideration that I'm sure BCG has a very clear picture of how the streams of energy are moving around the world.
So, I mean, as you rightly said, offtake is the key word in green hydrogen. And what do we mean by offtake is this contract by which a developer of a green hydrogen project commits to sell its green hydrogen or derivative to a buyer. And what they're looking for is for a sort of firm commitment that covers most or all of the production for a long term, ideally the whole duration of the project. And why is it critical? Is because by securing this commercial agreement, you can then secure financing, typically project financing from the banks, because the banks will ask for a certainty on the cash flows. And that's why offtakes are so critical. Difficulty here is that it's a relatively nascent industry. Costs are high, or even higher than initially anticipated a few years ago. There's still a number of technological risks. Technology is not fully mature. In the end, we're talking about billion-dollar projects, so there's always a number of interdependencies and interfaces between the renewables production, the electrolyzer, where you actually transform the molecule of water into hydrogen, the derivatives production, the export. So there's a number of pieces that need to come together. There's also a bit of regulatory uncertainty, because what do you call clean hydrogen? What is the level of carbon intensity under which the hydrogen can be considered as clean? So all these difficulties make the space a bit, relatively nascent, and hence securing an offtake remains a challenge. So when you look globally at this overall big momentum, as you said, when you look at the pipeline of projects, there's like more than 2,000 projects globally announced, or at different stages of maturity, that want to produce clean hydrogen, most of them being green. But only of those 2,000, only roughly 10% have secured some sort of offtake. And of those 10%, only 13% are binding offtake, where there is an actual contract with real commercial terms. So it remains one of the main challenges, securing that offtake so that you can move on in your project, secure the financing, and finally start building.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just staying into the offtake contract for 1 minute, without going into the intricacy of those complex contracts, but there is the price and the pricing formula and model, and there is also the certification, as you clearly referred to. And certification seems to be pretty much under control. We have certification methodology of the carbon content from the production through the transportation all the way to the end users. Pricing is obviously a bit of a challenge because it's also related to the carbon content to a certain extent, but also it's all about whether that's going to be secured contract with, like fixed blocked off amount of energy equivalent, or basically buying on the merchant open market. So. Again, what's your thoughts about the direction that these emerging markets are going to take?
It's difficult to say. I mean, it's a nascent market, but typically people, well, at least within BCG, we think of clean hydrogen a bit as in similar terms to the LNG market. We expect it to develop somehow similarly, because in the end, LNG, when it was first launched, also seemed a bit like a crazy idea, much more expensive than shipping the gas through a pipeline. So people were like, how can we transport that? Who is willing to pay 3-4 times the cost of gas? So you had to rely on a number of companies and countries that were willing to take the risk, agree on long-term contracts, and progressively became a bit more merchant. And today the spot market on LNG is a well-functioning one. So we see a number of parallels in BCG. And hence the way we think about the commercial structures and how they're going to evolve is a bit along those lines. Long-term contracts for now, and potentially then agreeing with some sort of indexation mechanisms, etc. And then at some point moving a bit more into a merchant type of contracts.
I get, and the future will tell.
Who knows exactly? Yes.
Okay. We're going to change gears a little bit and zoom into Oman, because that's the country that welcomes us here, and in particular for the Green Hydrogen Summit, Oman. So you touch on the advantages and benefits that the region offers, such as the sun irradiance and the breezing coastal line of Oman in particular. But I'd like you to get your thoughts on the other advantages that Oman is offering. Oman have champions. They have energy champions. They have logistic and port terminal management champions, as he had, of course. And they have that relatively unique structure called Hydrogen Oman, or so-called Hydrom. How do you see those structural benefits from the perspective of a foreign direct investor, and how does that help maybe with the bankability of the project?
Indeed, I think what you just mentioned is spot on. It's not just about the natural resources, it's also the way the sector is structured in Oman is very attractive to international investors. So Hydrom, which is the entity that's been created to lead the development of the green hydrogen sector, acts as an orchestrator. So it is in charge of delineating lands and offering them to the market. And just that is very unique, because if you're a developer of a green hydrogen project in any other country, it is not clear how you get access to the land. You need to start talking to a number of stakeholders, the ministries of energy, the ministries of housing. So it is a whole development process to get access to the land, etc. Here, no, it is already provided to investors. And it is provided to investors in a very structured, open and transparent manner with these auctions. And this has been very successful. So when you look at the track record of Oman, and in particular Hydrom, in a couple of years, they were able to run 2 rounds of auctioning, and they were able to award 8 projects, 8 gigawatt scale projects, which represent collectively more than 35 gigawatts of renewable capacity and $50 billion of investment in just a couple of years. To give you a point of comparison, a typical renewable auction, which is a very mature industry, can take 6, 9, 12 months, if not more. Here in that same time frame, they were able to do it for green hydrogen, which is a very unique and testament to the way that Oman is probably doing something right. And it's not just hydrogen, it's also, as you mentioned, the rest of the ecosystem. So you have OQ, so the OQ group, which has a number of subsidiaries that are involved. So in particular, OQ Alternative Energy, which is the renewable champion of Oman, who is participating in those projects alongside international investors. You have OQGN, the gas transmission operator, who will be in charge of developing the hydrogen pipeline, and a number of ASIAD on the logistics, because these are very large-scale projects. So you also need to make sure that the overall logistics ecosystem is ready. We're talking about the ports to import all the material. We need to make sure that the roads are ready to transport, for instance, the big wind turbines to the sites. We also need to have the export infrastructure. So there's a whole ecosystem that needs to be ready, and ASIAD has been mandated to lead that development. So overall, I think that Oman has done an excellent job at structuring its ecosystem in a way that is attractive to international investors, but at the same time enables the country to capture value locally.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, that's thanks for the complete overview of the ecosystem. Looking at maybe also, in addition to what you said, what would you think or see the sectors where Oman has to further or continue further developing to support those projects? I'm maybe throwing a few of them at you, like seawater desalination or infrastructure of transporting the gas or the electricity.
Yeah. So one thing that is quite unique to Oman is indeed the infrastructure, what we call the shared infrastructure. So all these 8 projects and the ones coming later on will be connected, will be sharing a number of assets, because the sites where you produce the hydrogen in Oman are further down the center of the country, like 50, 100 kilometers from the coast. So you need to transport the energy from those sites to the export terminals. And Oman has decided, and we believe at BCG that it makes a lot of sense, to pool the resources. So the project will be sharing the hydrogen pipeline, the transmission lines, and the water supply and water reject. And those, by pooling those resources, you are able to reduce cost. Of course, it creates a bit of project-on-project risk, because not only you are managing your own projects, but you also depend on that shared infrastructure to be ready. So for us as BCG, we really believe it makes sense is to make sure that that infrastructure needs to be there. You cannot add an additional sort of burden of uncertainty on the developers that have already a lot to deal with. So Oman needs to somehow take some sort of risk to make sure that infrastructure is ready, potentially provide some sort of government guarantees or simply invest in infrastructure partly to make sure it's ready. So that's on the infrastructure. We, in terms of standards, regulation, etc., I think it's important that Oman aligns with the rest of the world. So if you are going to export your hydrogen or derivatives to Europe, Asia, etc., make sure that your standards, you don't set Omani specific standards, that you are aligned with what exists. And finally, this is not easy, but is around maybe some sort of incentivization. We know that green hydrogen is expensive, especially when you compare with the incumbent technologies. So maybe there is a play where Oman can selectively subsidize or incentivize the production of green hydrogen. And one way of doing it could be, if you think about the energy transition. So Oman has committed net zero by 2050. And in doing so, it will be progressively reducing the use of hydrocarbons locally, especially of natural gas. And if that natural gas can be exported as LNG, you will generate additional proceeds for the government. And if you were able to ring-fence those proceeds and redirect those proceeds to invest in clean technologies, in particular green hydrogen, you could really further accelerate the transition.
Excellent. Which is an excellent transition to another point I wanted to explore with you is green hydrogen is coming in Oman in many different ways along the supply chain and so on. I'd like to explore a little bit your thoughts about how such a massive emerging market, which we know in Oman will be partly for exportation and partly for domestic use, may change the economy of Oman. We know how we rank all the countries versus each other. I'm not so much about the dimension, but fundamentally how such a momentum is going to change maybe the society and maybe the economy of Oman as well.
No, of course. I mean, Oman, with its Vision 2040, has a very ambitious strategy to diversify and grow its economy. And this is indeed required because we don't know how fast the hydrocarbons demand will decline, but we know that some sort of transition will happen. So you don't want to have an economy that is very too dependent on hydrocarbons. And green hydrogen can play a role in this transition, and as we see at BCG 3 main impacts. The first one is the direct impact of investing in green hydrogen in Oman. You will be creating jobs, you will be increasing GDP because you will be producing molecules, exporting them or using them locally. So that's an additional activity that doesn't exist today. The second effect is because the green hydrogen strategy of Oman is so ambitious. So when you look at if you really are going to produce 8 million tons of green hydrogen by 2050, this requires renewables capacity of more than 100 gigawatts, which is tremendous. So that the sheer size of the green hydrogen strategy of Oman creates a sort of catalyzer to localize part of the value chain. So for instance, some sort of part of the solar panels manufacturing, wind turbines manufacturing, battery manufacturing, electrolyzer manufacturing, because to localize, investors, they need significant volumes, and that those volumes can be provided by Oman. And finally, for me, the third effect, which is a bit induced, is that this green hydrogen strategy has been very publicized, has sort of put Oman on the map. And we see at BCG a lot of momentum. So a number of our clients around the globe are calling us, say, look, can you tell me what's happening in Oman? We're interested. We want to be part of that, not just on green hydrogen, but more broadly about the economic diversification that is happening in Oman. And we believe that that was partly due to this very ambitious green hydrogen strategy.
Very good, very good. Excellent. We'll move into another section of our dialogue, which is probably bread and butter for you, Javier, because that's the finance. And I guess based on your experience and background, that's certainly a subject of an area of focus for you. And the question I have in my mind is maybe not so much related to Oman, but in general, the emerging market in green hydrogen and derivative is coming. It's a matter of time and speed now, but it will happen. And we still have a financing industry, I would call it that way, that works in a certain way. There are traditional model of financing and non-traditional and maybe innovative model of financing. So I'd like to explore a little bit those innovative way of financing a green hydrogen project, because they may actually, this emerging industry may require a different approach to financing. So if you could give us an overview of that.
Indeed, so when you want to finance some project, I mean, the typical capital providers will look at how risky this project is and what are the sort of returns that we can generate from those projects. And given that green hydrogen is relatively nascent, risk is perceived as high and the potential returns are uncertain. So that's why, we mentioned it before, the offtakes are so important to provide that commercial viability and with stable and recurring cash flows. And here you have a number of indeed alternative methods that could help. Maybe some sort of blended finance, which enables you to move marginally investable projects to, across the line and make them investable, either by reducing a bit the risk or improving a bit the commercial returns. So that's one example. I also believe that sovereign wealth funds or the government have a role to play. They can either invest in the project themselves or potentially more realistic, invest in the ecosystem around those projects. We mentioned the infrastructure, so you need to provide certainty to investors. Look, you deal with your project, but we guarantee you as Oman government that the infrastructure will be there, that you will have the overall ecosystem that the ports will be ready. So that's also a way of supporting the projects with the financing.
Excellent. And you mentioned sovereign funds. Actually, they are fundamental. When we look at the ranking of the sovereign funds in the world, we find a few of them being in this region, on the Saudi and Qatari side of things. We have here Oman Investment Authority, which is also a very active sovereign fund. How do you see their maybe their presence into supporting the emerging market in Oman in particular?
So Oman Investment Authority has indeed been very active in supporting the energy transition of Oman and the broader economic diversification. We see them playing in at least two dimensions. One is they have been selectively investing in very promising startups in the region, in Oman and globally, and trying to localize those companies into Oman. So they have invested in battery energy storage manufacturers, which is a potentially very attractive investment, but also has the opportunity to be localized in Oman and enable securing the supply chain for the energy transition that would be unfolding in Oman. So that's one area where we believe they're doing a fantastic job. The other one is, in the end, OIA is also the custodian of a number of national champions, in particular the OQ group. So effectively, OIA, through its portfolio companies, is investing in the transition.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. So, we are all aware, I mean, it's public information that there are very large green hydrogen investment being under due diligence or study right now. So, any guess or any thoughts about the timing of that? I mean, of course, we'll probably have some of the project developers sitting where you are in the future, and they will tell us, probably they will give us an update. But I want to believe that they are not completely synchronized, because they were awarded via the first and the second auction, and now we've got the third auction coming up.
Correct.
So any thoughts about some potential FID that will draw these innovative financing requirement that you referred to?
So indeed those 8 projects that have been awarded as part of round 1 and round 2 of Oman Green Hydrogen auction run by Hydrom, the target is that they start commercial operations in 2030, which means they need to take FID somewhere in 2026, early 2027, so that they have enough construction time to be ready by 2030. We understand that some projects are moving forward, so there is definitely progress with the studies to understand the resources, the commercial discussions with potential off-takers. So things are moving forward. What can happen is maybe there's 1 or 2 years of delay in some of those projects. I don't believe that that's the end of the world, because this is such a nascent industry that will happen anyway. What's important is that those projects move forward, and we believe that this should be happening. And actually, we have one of the projects, the Acme one, who has taken FID on its first phase. So that should already catalyze and generate a number of learnings for the rest of the projects and Oman as a whole.
Absolutely. So business is calling business. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
So which is, I guess, is the good news. I'd like to also look at another enabling factor for the green hydrogen development here in Oman, but also regionally, is about the collaboration. And Oman is known for promoting collaborative approach in their strategic partnership. We named some of the state organization here, but as a government, we've seen also alliance, government-to-government alliance and development, be it with Asia or some Asian states, locally or regionally, as well as with Europe. I'd like to get your view on how critical is that collaboration to enable the market to materialize in particular in Oman.
Indeed, I think that's very, very critical. The government has a clear role to play. First, through Hydrom as the orchestrator. They set the ambition and they put in place the different enablers. Second, also commercially, the government can play its role because a number of those offtakes, the commercial discussions, can happen or can be supported through government-to-government discussions. So Oman has actually been very active in going to Korea, to Japan, to Europe, in particular to Germany and the Netherlands. So that's really helping the local players connect with the players in those countries and ignite or accelerate the commercial discussions. So that's a key role that Oman government is playing very well. Another one is, in the end, if you see that you have the government backing, that provides comfort and to investors that
Of course.
it's a national strategy, it's a national priority. So the government and Oman as a whole is behind this and will be stepping in one way or another to support the development of the industry.
Yeah, we've seen that very visibly with the alliance and the strategic agreement with the Port of Amsterdam, of course, the Port of Antwerp, and the backbone hydrogen project in that will feed Germany and the Benelux in the future. So definitely, do you also see those kind of strategic? And I'm asking you to do a bit of perspective on that one, because those strategic alliances have not necessarily been announced, but with China, Korea, we know that there are South Korean investors in phase 2 of hydrogen, and Japanese as well. But do you also see or foresee a government-to-government strategic alliance with those countries as well?
Yeah, very
China
much,
as well?
very much. The first, my understanding is that the first focus of those government-to-government alliances were mostly with Japan and South Korea, which are expected to become export nations, and Oman is very well placed to export its hydrogen and derivatives to those nations. But China increasingly, because we see China as a real partner for the region, because it can provide financing, it can bring developers, and very importantly, it can bring the technology. The largest solar panel manufacturers, wind turbine manufacturers, battery manufacturers, electrolyzer manufacturers are Chinese. And that, for me, if we step a little bit back from green hydrogen and look more broadly about the energy transition, what is happening is we're at the moment where we have a great window of opportunity for Oman and the Middle East more broadly to localize those supply chains, because in particular the Western world companies are looking to diversify their supply chains away from China, notably because of the different commercial and tariffs put in place by the Trump administration. And the Chinese companies are looking to actually move part of their supply chain out of China so that they avoid the sanctions, the tariffs, etc. And that creates the opportunity for the Middle East to attract that supply chain locally. And here is where the government has also a key role to play in initiate the initial discussions with those countries and provide an attractive ecosystem to attract those companies into the country.
Exactly. Another aspect of the strategic collaboration is you and I are originally from a region that we call Europe, right? And then we see sometimes the challenge that we have to basically bring everybody around the table, fix and synchronize every countries on the same regulation and make a market happen. What about the GCC areas? Because we've named a few countries that are really, commercially, on that commercial momentum of developing low carbon hydrogen. Would you see, and if you see, how much value would you see of the GCC countries that are leading the charge at the moment of sharing some of those infrastructure, be it pipeline, importing hubs, and so on?
Correct. I mean, I think that even goes beyond green hydrogen. For instance,
it does.
When you look at oil or gas infrastructure, Oman can be very attractive to Saudi Arabia and UAE because it provides a direct access to the Indian Ocean and avoiding the choke points of the Strait of Hormuz, right? So there is increasing collaboration around the infrastructure, and green hydrogen, of course, is part of that. There's also discussions about this GCC interconnector that would also enable the further deployment of renewables, because you will be able to pool resources from different regions where you might have slightly different weather conditions. So that is bound to happen and should enable the development of the industry much further.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Last point, because we have a few minutes left, I'd like to look at maybe from the perspective of the man and the woman in Oman, and they start seeing a lot of announcements, and not all of them are the same level of understanding of what green hydrogen means and so on. There will be opportunities, as we say. We talked about the challenges, but there will be many opportunities, and I'm thinking particularly about maybe the young graduates, and Oman put so much emphasis on education, higher education even, over the last decade. So how do you see that, both as an opportunity and maybe a gap to close or to fit for the young Omani generations to contribute to the green hydrogen momentum?
No, indeed, it's a great opportunity. And even beyond green hydrogen, this energy transition, all these clean technologies that are starting to develop, reaching a tipping point of acceleration, that creates a lot of job opportunities, both very white collar, very technical jobs, but also more manual jobs, because you will need to install those technologies. So there is a fundamental opportunity for young Omanis. Yep. And that means also that the government needs to make sure to put in place the right training programs, university programs to train that workforce to be able to tap into those opportunities. But the potential is definitely there.
Absolutely. And I think also the other good news is we've got a lot of still young engineers and people in the supply chain who worked on hydrocarbon energy, and they can actually reskill,
of course,
upskill, or do a transitional skilling momentum and to address that. So I think that's very good. Now we're coming toward the end, and I'll ask you probably the same question I asked to another invitees last week is, let's put ourselves in 2030, that's just around the corner. You mentioned that some of those projects should be on commercial operation, and rightly so. If we look at 2030, 2040, or even 2050, which is even more prospective and probably hypothetical, but let's say 2030 and 2040, what would you consider is a success in Oman as far as developing the hydrogen market?
Yes. So by 2030 for me, it's pretty clear, is making sure that those 8 projects or whatever number of projects have moved forward and have started commercial operations, so that Oman has started to export the hydrogen and its derivatives to the different importing nations. 2040 is you have further structured the ecosystem, and you have even more projects, even greater relationship with the exporting nations. But I think importantly as well, you have been able to localize part of the value chain and also moved away from the paradigm of I just export energy or molecules. I can also consume locally and maybe go further down the value chain and export semi-finished products like HBI for green steel.
Right.
So that I think is an important point, to move away from I am just an exporting nation of energy. I can also produce locally some higher value products, capture more value locally, and then export those products to the rest of the world.
And anchor some of that added value on the ground here.
Exactly.
That's great. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Of course, we are meeting today because there is a major Green Hydrogen Summit Oman event at the end of this year. So before we close here, what would be the message you would give to the viewers and the reasons why they should come to GHSO this year?
Well, having been part of GHSO for the past few years, I love the energy and the dynamism. And when you look at how the event has evolved over time, it has only been increasing the quality of the speakers, the diversity of the companies is quite incredible and improving every year. So I'm sure that the 2025 edition will be even better than last year's.
Very good. Javier, I thank you very much for coming today and sharing all your knowledge and your view on the green hydrogen market. And I look forward to meeting you again in December.
Very good. Here. My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And to all our viewers, so this was the second episode of Energy Talks, sponsored by iSafety. And this was Javier Doblas, who is the managing director and partner of BCG in Dubai. Thank you very much, and see you in December in Muscat.